Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Adam Richmond, athletic trainer at Dickinson College. Today, we are here to discuss the topic of recovery. This is the recovery pyramid. We have multiple layers of recovery, and I like this pyramid because at the base of it, it has our big rocks that we really need to focus on to optimize or maximize our recovery from stresses of daily life and from stresses of playing your sport on the field and stresses of activities in the weight room. Our main way that our body recovers is through nutrition, sleep, and mental health. Obviously, we need nutrition to fuel our workouts, but we also need nutrition to help rebuild any of the damage that we do during the workout. Sleep is going to be a really big important part of recovery, and we're going to talk about that first during the presentation, so I'll save that for as we get into it. And then mental health, again, we'll talk about this in more detail, but understanding that your mental health or your ability to manage stresses outside of the field or outside of the weight room are going to hugely impact how well you can handle the stresses of the weight room and on the field. So if you are struggling to be able to deal with daily life stresses, that's going to take out of the same bank account or the same energy reserve as playing lacrosse or field hockey or whatever sport it is you're playing, or weight room activities that you're doing. So it's all taken from the same bank account, and understanding how to optimize your mental health to help optimize your recovery is going to be hugely important. Later in the presentation, we're going to talk about periodization and how myself and the coaching staffs here at Dickinson utilize a plan to dose the stresses on different days to help optimize your recovery. So again, we can't go hard every single day. There has to be lower intensity days. There has to be off days to help allow your body to recover. But on the flip side of that as well, we do need to make sure that we're actually providing enough stress to create a training effect so that you actually have something to recover from. So periodization will be a huge part of how well you recover, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And then we'll talk about monitoring and how we are going to use some wellness questionnaires or readiness questionnaires to subjectively see how well you're responding to the training stress. So, it's our job to periodize this stress and make sure that we're giving you the appropriate amount of stress to produce a training effect, and then allowing your body to recover from that. And it's your job to take care of the nutrition, the sleep, the mental health, and some of these other aspects that we're going to talk about in the presentation. But the monitoring is going to help us as the coaching staff kind of connect with you guys as the athletes and make sure that we're on the same page, and that we're not dosing too much stress, or maybe you're not taking care of yourself. Maybe we're giving you the right amount of stress, but you're not taking care of your side of things. You're not taking care of the nutrition, the sleep, and the mental health, so you're not responding well to the program, and the rest of the team is. So that's just an easy way for me to start a conversation with you and say, hey, it looks like everybody else is really dealing with this stress pretty well. It's not a programming problem. It's not a periodization problem. Maybe you're not doing something right, or maybe you just need a little bit of help with some a specific sleep plan or a specific nutrition plan. So monitoring is going to be a huge piece of the puzzle here for overall recovery. And then lastly, we'll get into the recovery modalities. So recovery modalities are your whirlpools, your hot tubs, your cold tubs, your foam rolling, your compression, your cryotherapy, all the gimmicky things that you see on social media, and that are touted all over social media about being, okay, you have to have this to have recovery. But realistically, those things can be very important and very helpful, especially in season. But if you don't have the foundation of this pyramid, the nutrition, the sleep, and mental health, the gimmicky, recovery modalities that everybody touts about on social media aren't going to help you that much. You really need to lock down the big three here: the nutrition, the sleep, and the mental health. So let's move on and let's talk about sleep and why it's important. So some sleep basics. Let's start with how much sleep should you get? So it's recommended anywhere from 7 to 10 hours for your general population. Your average Joe, 7 to 9 seems to be a pretty good number. But the for athletes, we recommend 8 to 10. So we need a little bit more sleep because we need a little bit more recovery because we're doing a little bit more activity. We have a little bit more stress in our life. So we need more sleep to help us recover. So again, the minimal effective dosage will probably be around 7 hours. But for athletes, we're aiming to hit that 8 to 10. So let's say, well, what if I'm not getting that 7 to 9 hours, or I'm not getting that 8 to 10 hours as an athlete? What's the big deal? The big deal is that if you're not getting an adequate amount of sleep, you're immediately at an increased risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, dementia, depression, anxiety, musculoskeletal injuries. So all the injuries that we sustain during sporting activities, and then just illness in general. So just the common cold, the flu, it weakens your immune system. When you're not getting enough sleep, you're not recovering, you're now more susceptible to all these types of diseases, these illnesses, and even musculoskeletal injury. So specifically the musculoskeletal injury, there was a really good research study that was done on athletes, and they looked at a group of athletes that got your minimal 8 hours, right? So we had a group of athletes that got the 8 to 10 hours that we're recommending, and then we had a group of athletes that were not getting that 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And the group that was not getting the 8 to 10 hours of sleep they were at a 1.7 times greater risk of injury compared to those who did get the 8 hours. So this is pretty enlightening. If you're not sleeping enough, you're almost 2 times more likely to get injured compared to somebody who is getting a good night's sleep. So something to think about. And then the other part of that study that was pretty interesting was that your greatest risk of injury was actually resulted when both training load was increased and sleep duration decreased simultaneously. So, if you're spiking your workload, your stress levels go up, and all of a sudden your sleep duration or sleep volume goes down at the same time, then you're even more likely to get injured than that 1.7 times. So something to really think about as you transition into a period of preseason, or a period where you're really increasing your workload. You really, really, really need to hone in on that quality sleep, that volume of sleep, of trying to get that 8 to 10 hours. So again, as we move into preseason, making sure that we get our 8 to 10 hours is going to be hugely important to minimize the risk of injury. So how does sleep affect us? So sleep affects pretty much every system of the body, but specifically, there's been some research that have shown it affects our immune system, our blood sugar, so our ability to process sugars and metabolize sugar, our appetite, our cognition, and our pain tolerance. Our pain tolerance, I thought, was a really big one, right? Like, if again, going back to the increase in likelihood of musculoskeletal injury, is it actually injury, or are you just, your pain tolerance is down, and now what you perceive as pain or injury may not even be that bad of an injury, or actually have that much tissue damage. Just the fact that you're not sleeping well minimizes your pain tolerance, and increases your perception of threat. So I think that's another big piece here to think about. So making sure, again, that we get enough sleep is going to be hugely important as we transition into preseason, as we are working out and increasing our workloads. So on the other side, so we talked about, okay, what are the risks of not getting enough sleep? Well, what are the benefits of getting enough sleep? So of actually getting that 8 to 10 hours. So a bunch of studies researched that, and took a group, again, a group that wasn't getting, or I'm sorry, took athletes and got a baseline of how much sleep they were getting, and then help them increase the amount of sleep they were getting. So in all these studies, all they did was take your baseline sleep, increase that amount of sleep that you typically get, and then retested an outcome measure. And pretty much across the board, they saw significant performance gains. So in one study, the athletes were able to increase their speed. Another study on basketball players, they were able to increase their free throw percentage and their three-point shooting. Another study showed that athletes had increased reaction time, first serve percentage in tennis, and then another one was swim sprint times. So again, across the board, you take whatever you're doing now, and you increase your sleep, and all of a sudden you see a performance gains. Not having to, we're not talking about training, we're not talking about adding extra sessions. No extra work has been done here. All they had to do was increase the amount of time they slept, and they saw performance gains. So that's like low hanging fruit. Let's increase our sleep, and all of a sudden we're going to be better at our sport. Like, that seems like a no brainer. All right, so let's get into the nitty gritty of actual sleep. I think the biggest piece of the puzzle for sleep is duration first. So we have volume of sleep, and then we have quality of sleep, right? I think this isn't necessarily research back. This is more experience back, and what I see is helpful. But I think if we can try to lock down the volume of sleep first, and then once we have that locked down and we're up to that goal of 8 to 10 hours, then we can start to focus on quality of sleep. And that's what we'll talk about next. So again, minimum effective dosage has to be 7. If you're not hitting 7 hours, we need to work on that like real hard, real fast. We need to get you up to 7 hours. But again, for athletes, I want the goal to be 8 to 10 hours every night. I know that can be hard as a student athlete and in college, but if you really want to maximize your performance and decrease your risk of injury, trying to hit that 8 to 10 hours is going to be really, really valuable for you. The other priority with that, so like that duration is the goal, and we also really want to try to focus on getting that 8 to 10 hours as nighttime sleep. That needs to be a priority. Nighttime sleep allows that long duration sleep, and we have several cycles of the sleep cycle of the. I'm sorry, we have several stages of the sleep cycle, and REM sleep is when we really get into that the recovery part and really allow our bodies to rest and digest, and a lot of neurophysiology happens during REM sleep. And it takes, and I've read a couple different studies that showed, different for everybody, but, it takes at least 60 to 90 minutes to get into that REM sleep. So if you're just taking a 30-minute nap, you're not actually getting into that REM sleep, and it's not going to be as effective as it would be as if you're getting that nighttime sleep, that long several hour sleep where you actually go through all the stages of sleep several times, several cycles throughout the night. And that's going to be really, really valuable and very important. So really trying to prioritize nighttime sleep is going to be important. If you're not getting that 8 to 10 hours, or specifically if you're not getting at least 7 hours, we need to start to incrementally build on that. So maybe that's adding 30 minutes a night. Maybe that's adding 30 minutes a week. Maybe it's just 5 minutes a night, and by the end of the week, you're up to that 35 minutes. An extra 30 to 35 minutes, and then the next week you're up to another hour, right? So it doesn't really matter how you do it, but as long as you're incrementally trying to increase the total volume of sleep that you're getting, that is hugely important. So pick a goal. Maybe it's okay, I'm going to go to bed 30 minutes earlier every night. Maybe it's only 5 minutes earlier every night, but make a goal, hit that goal, consistently do that, and eventually that's going to become a habit. That's going to become part of your routine, and you're no longer going to have to think about it, and you're going to start to really see these performance gains, and again, decrease the risk of injury. So again, total volume, a minimum of 7 hours. Would really like to see you hit 8 to 10. So that next thing we need to talk about is the quality of sleep. So quality is the next thing. So once you got the duration down, you're getting that 8 to 10, then we need to really focus in on trying to get that to be a quality of sleep, trying to hit more of that REM sleep. So that's how we're going to do that is, I think, a good way to start is with a sleep routine. So trying to help you wind down. I think most people have trouble falling asleep, and then staying asleep is the most trouble. So having a routine at night to help you wind down is going to be really valuable. So some things you can think about are yoga, meditation, reading a good book. I like to recommend when reading, not making it a subject that you're studying in school or make it anything about athletics. So we want to take our mind off of the things that typically stress us out. And we'll talk about this more in the mental health piece, but we don't want to be reading or studying or thinking about things that stress us out, because then that's what we're going to be thinking about when we go to sleep. That's what we're going to start to dream about. That's what's going to wake us up in the middle of the night, right? So we want to get a good book that's completely off topic, something that doesn't have anything to do with what you're typically studying or thinking about, and just let that wind you down. And again, maybe it's a hot shower, but you got to find a routine that works for you, that helps make you tired, and will help you fall asleep. Some things to avoid during that wind down time are technology. We need to power down the technology. So screens, so the one you're staring at right now, no bueno. We need to make sure that we turn off the iPhones, the iPads, the computers, the TVs. All that technology actually produces blue light, which actually decreases our melatonin production, and melatonin is what makes us sleepy and tired. So if we're not producing melatonin at night, then we're not getting sleepy, we're not going to get tired, and it's going to be very hard to fall asleep. So we need to power down the technology. I would say at least 1 to 2 hours before bed, to really help allow your body to start producing melatonin to help make you tired. So again, getting rid of those screens is going to be very valuable. And then the environment inside your room. So what should it be like when you're sleeping? We want it to be like a cave. So we want it to be cool, dark, and quiet. Cool, as in temperature. I've seen recommendations between 60 and 67 degrees. So typically around the 60s, I think would be best. I would recommend having it cooler rather than hotter. I feel like most of the time, if you're a little bit cold, you can, cuddle up in your blankets and wrap up and feel pretty warm and sleep through that. Whereas if you're too hot, we tend to wake up and lose covers and have issues with staying asleep when it's too hot. Also needs to be dark. So that might, some recommendations there, like blackout blinds. So making sure that there's not a lot of light coming in early in the morning, waking you up. Again, that light's going to start decreasing your melatonin production, and it's gonna spark that starting to become awake. So we want to be as dark as we can to get as many hours of sleep in as we can. Some other recommendations there are making sure that you turn off like alarm clocks, any digital lights. So like even like little red lights on your TV or lights, on different electronic devices, even if you're not using them, those artificial lights inside your room can actually affect the quality of your sleep. So as dark as you can get it is the best. And the easiest thing to do would just be to wear an eye mask, right? So completely black it out with an eye mask. Be very easy to eliminate all the lights in your room. Um, and then you want to be quiet. I know that can be difficult again as a college student, and not having control over roommates and what other people in your dorm are doing late at night. But we got to try the best we can. If that involves having conversations with your roommates, having conversations with people on your floor, making sure that everybody understands that, hey, I'm an athlete and I need to get 8 to 10 hours of sleep tonight. So you really need to be cooperative with that. The other thing you can do is wear earplugs. Maybe not the most comfortable thing to do, but it's definitely an option. That can definitely help minimize the noise while you're sleeping. Some other things to think about. You definitely want to avoid caffeine. That's a no-brainer, right? So caffeine's a stimulant. Increasing caffeine at night is obviously not going to allow you to fall asleep. And the other thing is that people don't really understand is alcohol is also not a good way to help you fall asleep. Yes, it helps you fall asleep, but it's actually not really sleep, right? It's like passing out. It's not the same as good quality sleep. So alcohol, that also can make you have to use the restroom in the middle of the night. That can wake you up. Lots of bad things with alcohol, so just avoid it altogether. And that with caffeine. And then some other things to avoid are highly processed fats and sugars. So this is basically all your junk food, so candies, Doritos, chips, all that kind of stuff that's super highly processed and it has a lot of fat and sugar in it. That's going to mess with your metabolism. That's going to mess with you while you're sleeping. That's going to be a stimulant, and all these bad things that are not productive for a good quality night's sleep. So we want to avoid all that kind of stuff. And then lastly here, timing. I think it's really good to go to bed and wake up at the same time every night. Our bodies run on circadian rhythms, and those are based off of light and dark. So we do want to try to go to sleep when it's dark, wake up when it's light. That's very valuable for just overall well-being, and has been shown to increase quality of sleep. So I always recommend anchoring your waking time first. So what time are you going to get up? So try to get up at the exact same time every morning, regardless if you have a workout or not. Make sure you're getting up at the same time, and your body will get into that rhythm. When it gets into the rhythm, then it's going to start to get tired earlier in the night, which is then going to allow you to go to bed earlier in the night, which then you're going to make up that 8 to 10 hours. So anchoring that waking time can be very valuable and very helpful. And then, another thing, just again with circadian rhythms and maximizing your quality of sleep, it's actually been shown that if you can get morning light, outdoor morning light specifically, first thing in the morning can be really, really valuable with syncing up your circadian rhythms and getting you into that groove. And then finally, if we're not getting that 8 to 10 hours, then we can take naps. Naps are okay. Like if we're not getting the 8 to 10, let's do some naps, but let's make them in between 1 and 4 p.m. So obviously, if you're trying to take a nap earlier than 1 o'clock, then you pretty much didn't wake up, right? Like it's still the morning. And then, anything after 4, then you might have trouble actually falling asleep later that night. So we don't want to take naps after 4 o'clock. So if you are going to take a nap, take it in between 1 and 4 p.m. And again, everybody will be a little bit different with that, just based off of their own body type body type and what works for them. So you kind of play around with that, but try to hit it in between 1 and 4 p.m. And then we already talked about this a little bit, but after you anchor that waking time, then you do want to try to go to bed at the same time as well. Again, like maybe you're going to bed by 10 o'clock, and you're waking up at like 6 o'clock, right? So that would give you a solid 8 hours. And if you are doing that, then you can start that wind down routine around 8 o'clock. You get rid of all the screens, all the blue light. You start, maybe take a shower, do a little light stretching, do a little meditation, and then read for 5-10 minutes, and then hopefully you're sleepy and you've fallen asleep. But yeah, that's why sleep is very valuable. Again, it's going to increase your performance and decrease your injury risk. If you have questions specific to this, or want to talk a little bit more about how to come up with a sleep routine, let me know. But again, let's try to aim for that 8 to 10 hours.